Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast, a space for nurturing the ecosystem of business, body, and living. What would it be like if you gave your body a leadership role in your business and chose greater happiness every day? These are the conditions that create a healthy biome and a thriving business. I'm your host, Heather Nichols, and I'm so happy you're here. Hey there, everybody. Happy day. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. My name is Heather Nichols, and I'm the hostess with the mostest. And we're going to play today with bodies and movement and what is possible with bodies. I have been playing with bodies for a very long time. I've always really enjoyed my own body. I've had a lot of fun with my body and movement over the years. My mom had to lie when I was 2 to get me into a dance class because I wasn't old enough. So I started dancing at that point and kept dancing basically my whole life. I had some pauses here and there, but in various ways have moved and danced and really enjoyed. I was a diver. I was a cheerleader. I am sort of a figure skater now, a very, novice figure skater, but really enjoyed figure skating in the last few years and just really playing with my body in lots of ways. And I didn't realize for a long time that was not common. Like that wasn't something that a lot of people didn't actually enjoy their bodies, and they didn't enjoy moving their bodies. And it's funny because exercise is such a thing in the world, and people talk about, you need to exercise and you've got to exercise and work out and blah, blah. And exercise was never something that really meant anything to me. It was never really relevant to me. It was more moving my body in ways that was fun and that I enjoyed and that brought me pleasure. And that just always was kind of what I operated from and what made so much more sense to me than exercising for the sake of exercising. That's not something I've ever been able to do or prioritized or wanted to do. It just was kind of like, why would I do that when I could do something really fun? And the past couple of years, I've been playing more with the fascia in the body, which is a conversation I've had here and there throughout this podcast and various other episodes, and really starting to have a very different understanding of the structure of our bodies and what's possible beyond structure with our bodies, which is really cool because we've been in Access Consciousness recently. We've been having a lot of conversations about structuring the body, or structuring in general, structuring our lives, like all the structures that we create in our lives, our businesses, our relationships, how we relate to the world. I mean, just everywhere, energetic structures that we lean on and rely upon to kind of know how to function in a world that doesn't make sense to a lot of us. And we create structures in our bodies, and with our bodies, we structure our bodies to be relevant in the world, to fit in, to look like other people. There's all these really incredible energetic capacities that we have with our bodies that we sort of misuse against ourselves to try to create structure rather than actually having a sense of freedom and fluidity and movement and possibility. And I was actually, I taught dance as a, like in my 20s and 30s for about 13 years. I taught dance, a dance form called Nia, which was really wonderful at the time for me. And really got into, actually, I was a movement therapist. So when I finished my master's degree in social work in 1997, I believe it was, I was like, feels like it was like yesterday. It was a long time ago. Um, I I had been dancing. I had been doing Nia, which was kind of a mind body movement form. And I was living in Boulder, Colorado, where I live now still. And I found out about dance therapy. I was like, oh, there's such a thing as dance therapy. That's cool. And I thought about getting another degree in dance therapy because there's a Buddhist university here called Naropa that offers that. And I opted instead to dive into some really specific trainings. So I spent many years after my master's being like really learning and diving into training and and then working with clients and workshops and things like that, doing movement-based therapeutic work and really looking at how do we move our bodies and how does that affect our lives? Like, how does our movement and the way we inhabit our bodies affect our lives and our relationships and our, how we interact with the world and all of that? And then also, how does all of that also affect how we move our bodies? And it was fascinating. I took this one training. It was called psychobiomechanics. And it was so fascinating. It was a 6-month training that I did with this man called Bill Bowen, who was just beautiful, beautiful man. Really had so much wisdom about bodies. And we would watch, he would take videos in public places of people moving and walking, across the square or whatever. And we would watch movement. We would just like study movement, people that we knew, people that we didn't know, and sort of get a sense of what was going on energetically in their world. And sometimes we would speculate, if it was somebody that we didn't know, or if it was someone in the class, we'd start to kind of, dig into like, well, what's up? What's behind that? Like, where is your movement inhibited? Where does it seem like as you move your body, you're holding yourself back, from the world? And then the body became this sort of like this way for us to read what was going on with somebody, not by presuming and assuming, but really just getting energetic cues and downloads about what was going on in their life, that was being reflected in their body, the structure of their body, how they held their body, how they organized their body, and how they moved their body. And this is such a fascinating thing to study. And it was such a cool thing that I brought into my work for a long time, where I would do a lot of movement workshops and, really help people to get into like the whole experience of themselves through their bodies, with their bodies, and through movement as a real like access point for all of that. And it was a beautiful process, and one that informs me to this day, really, and my experience of my own body, because our bodies give so much information about what's going on and how we hold them and how we move them and how we organize them and where there's pain and where there's limitation. And all of this is part of it is wound in and held by the fascia, which is an incredible network of the really, really thin membranous tissue that is everywhere in our bodies. It wraps everything, our muscles, our organs, our nerves. It wraps everything in our bodies. And it's this network. So it's all connected. And it is, if you have like holding patterns or adhesions in one area, it can affect, like if I have something going on in my foot, it could affect my heart, or it could affect my face, or vice versa. And because if you take like with my sweater, if it's smooth here, if I start to bunch it up here, it's gonna, you can see the ripples, come all the way over here in what's happening here. And so the fascia is quite like that, where it, it gets held in one area, maybe because of a trauma or because of a point of view or because of some way that we've just like kind of carved this pathway of how we hold our bodies and how we move our bodies over time into this very limited, inhibited compromised way of structuring, holding our bodies, being with our bodies, and moving our bodies. And then everything gets compromised, things get tight, things get atrophied, both in our bodies, but also in our lives. Because if if you're stuck like this, you're closed down to the world, and when you start to open like this, it's like, wow, that's a totally different experience. And there's a different energy, there's a different structure, there's a different interaction with the world. There's more of a vulnerability a lot of times. So there's all these ways that our bodies just are this like incredible organism that's constantly reflecting to us our inner world, our energetic world, and like how we organize ourselves in every way. Because whatever's going on in your body, you're most likely bringing it to the world in a particular way. And it might make you have like a very specific kind of like emotional experience that you tend toward, or intensity or lack of intensity. People do angered, people do pathetic, people do all kinds of things. And all of that however we're holding our bodies and moving our bodies will affect that. And that will also affect how we move and how we show up, how we present ourselves through our bodies to the world. And it's so incredible to use the body as an access route to start to open up and unlock a lot of that stuff. And so with the fascia, when we work with the fascia, and there's two main ways I would say that I work with fascia. And one of them is through bowspring movement, which is a beautiful movement modality that is like, it totally reorganizes your entire body. Like it reorganizes your alignment. And I would say it destructures the body. It takes the solid structures that are like held and bound in place by our fascia and by the energetics of who we be and how we show up in the world. And it undoes that. Like it's like this systematic, beautiful movement over time that is designed to engage the fascia and engage our bodies into a totally different posture. It's a postural system that also has a lot of movement. It can be incredibly athletic, actually, and deeply athletic, like intrinsically athletic. And it's like constantly reshaping the fascia. And the fascia, in order for fascia to change, it's so thin and membranous and seems like it would be like sort of, something so thin, seems like it wouldn't be so strong, but it's incredibly strong. And fascia can range from hard as steel to viscous and gel-like. And when it's hard as steel, you can imagine if that's wrapping your muscles, your organs, your nerves, it's going to, like, everything is going to be locked up. When it's more viscous and gel-like, when it's hydrated and lubricated, it's going to have so much more fluidity to it. And we get to really pulse with the liveliness of the consciousness of our bodies, the movement of our bodies, what's possible, what's available. It's incredible to see what can occur when the fascia starts to become more viscous and much less solid. And something that's that thin and that strong actually requires, in order to get fascia to change, like, it doesn't just change, like a massage doesn't change it, like there's a lot of different types of body work that don't really change the fascia. And what I've found is there's a few different ways that I personally work with my own fascia. There's a lot of different things that I do for it. But the two main ones that I really wanted to talk about are the bowspring, because one of the things that bowspring does is it gets your body engaged. It works with toning and then providing directionality. So we tone the tissue of the body by engaging it, which engages the fascia. And then we provide directionality. And toned tissue, toned fascia is actually and muscles are much easier to reshape and redirect into a different directionality, which allows more openness and more presence, more strength, a greater sense of integrity in our bodies, a greater sense of movement, and like integration of your whole body and being in how you move in the world. And so when you engage and you direct in the way that the bowspring's very, very unique way of moving and being with our bodies in the way that we do, it's so deeply transformative. And one of the things that I found is that it, like, for me, when I practice bowspring, it opens me so in so many ways, and it creates this dynamic, energetic opening from the inside of my body out that sometimes can actually be quite triggering, because my nervous system is used to this way of being in the world. It's used to this kind of, lockdown mode, and less all the time, but there's so much of that. There's so many ways in which we are neurologically challenged and traumatized, and trauma can be a very overused concept and word, and so I kind of hesitate to use that. But there are these areas where we've been invalidated and shut down by people around us, events, things like that, where our body takes that on, it gets stored into the neurology and into the fascia, and it really affects how we move, how we present ourselves to the world, and our energetic, emotional, all of that experience of the world, and how we're able to show up and create and engage and interact with people and creations and things like that. So with the bowspring, one of the things that I've noticed is just this very, like, when I do a more intense practice, it's like, I'll be like, whoa, and I've had a lot of where my body releases and I'll cry. And it's just like a major let go of so many different things that are stored in the tissue. And to me, it's so fascinating to see how when we move in a particular way, we challenge ourselves to get outside of these very stuck, very dug in movement pathways and patterns that are not what is actually possible for our bodies, which is like so much openness and so much strength and so much presence and so much aliveness and expansiveness that supports an expansiveness of being and creation and showing up in the world. When we stick to the old pathways that are these deep grooves in our system, physically and energetically, that we can only continue to have the same things in our lives show up. When our bodies stay locked into the same patterns, then so do our lives and our relationships and our business and our money flows and, all these different aspects of life and living. And so changing from a movement perspective and an energetic perspective, and even changing the fascia, it can change your whole life and all of the different aspects of your life. The other tool that I've also spoken to before on this podcast, which is such a beautiful addition to all of this, it's called ESSI, Energetic Synthesis of Structural Embodiment. And ESSI works on so many, it's very, very energetic, and it does work with the fascia and the tissue of our bodies through a molecular engagement, like literally so it's a hands-on modality. It's more working directly with, like, engaging with the molecules of the tissue of the body to create a different reality with the tissue and the fascia, but also to allow us to have a very different sense of what's possible with embodiment, and not just this body, but like being in the world, interacting with creation and interacting with the consciousness of who we be. Like, it can be very big. The word embodiment means a lot more than just this body. And so it provides this incredible way of destructuring the body and really following the body. So having the body of, like, if I'm doing an SE session on somebody, I'm really listening to their body and where it is showing me that I can go and we can go to unwind and melt what's going on, that allows that person to then have a different experience of being, really, and in their body, with their body, in the world, with the world, and beyond that. This bigger space of embodiment that is very dynamic and so magical, and it facilitates in a very similar way that Bowspring does this destructuring, unwinding of the fascial, like, solidity that keeps all of these patterns and pathways and energetic ways of being and relating in place. And it's all through the body. It's so incredible. It's so fascinating. Our bodies know so much about what's possible. And they're actually so malleable and changeable, and they can show us exactly where to go. They can show us exactly how to move and exactly how to be. And the exploration of that, to me, is just absolutely fascinating. And so I'm excited to be playing with this in this way. And also, again, in a way, for so many years, movement and the exploration of ourselves and our world and our, lives and creation through movement was my whole world. That's what I did. I was a body-centered psychotherapist. I was a movement therapist. I taught movement. And when I found Access Consciousness, I went more into a lot of energetic tools and energetic ways of working with the body. And now with SE and with the Bowspring movement, it's like this, I'm being very reignited to play with bodies in motion. Bodies in motion are so smart, and they show us so much, and they reveal so much. And we have the opportunity to unwind and uncover and discover so much and destructure so much of our physical, somatic, energetic world, and the world of our being, truly, when we move our bodies in a very deliberate and specific way that is an invitation to open, to destructure, to unwind, to let go, and to let go into this more viscous, gel-like way of being with our fascia that allows for this opening and this sense of movement and fluidity in the body and also in our lives. And to access that through movement and what our bodies can show us and the information they can give us is so different and such an intense pleasure for me as a facilitator and also as a participant in that way of playing with our bodies. And I have developed and am developing a class called Be Moved. And I've actually done it in the past more as a dance-centered class. And I love playing with dance as well as Bowspring. And Be Moved is evolving into something very different. And it is going to be a 2-day live experience where we really dive into movement using Bowspring, using some dance, and this interplay of the energetics of you, exploring your being. Be moved, to me, is being moved by your being and your body, like letting your mind, leaving your mind at the door, allow your body to move you, allow your being to move you, and to show you what's possible with your whole life and living, with undoing and unwinding so many limiting and limited patterns, and stepping into more more greatness, more presence, more leadership, more success with your business, more with your money flows, more with your relationships and parenting and family and all the things that we create. And allowing taking this time for 2 days to explore that universe of what your body has to show you and to offer you through movement. Be Moved is going to also have an SE introduction the night before. So it's kind of a 2.5 day experience. The evening before, an SE introduction, which is pure SE and the actual body work of SE, and then followed by 2 days of movement exploration, playing with the fascia and really finding out so much more of the resource that your body is for you with movement and through movement. And so watch for this. I'll be doing my very first one in Chicago, the very first weekend in June. So I think it's May 31st, June 1st and 2nd. I will be doing one in Boulder, Colorado in mid-June and beyond. I haven't scheduled future ones yet. And I also am going to be doing an online series that starts in May. For those that can't make it live, to do some online pieces with people over Zoom. We'll be doing movement as well as dialogue and questions and things like that for 3 months on Zoom. So I'm really excited. This is just such a fun exploration for me, and one that really lights me up. And bodies in motion are. To me, our bodies were designed to move. We have all these joints and all these different ways of moving our bodies. And there's so much potential and possibility with movement if we give ourselves the time and the space and the permission. And it can be this access route to some deeper things that we can't always get to in other ways, that allow us to be present with, allows our bodies to undo and unleash and unravel and unveil these aspects of our structure that's been held so long around these energetic and, psychological patterns, that when we start to move, and the movement from a cellular and molecular level starts to change so much of what becomes, it just starts to open up so much more of what can become available to us. And as we do, we get to have the resource of our bodies in a very, very dynamic way that is so incredible. It's like the beginning of something totally different when you have a level of presence with your body moving through the world. Because I'm not just talking about bowspring and dancing and yoga and whatever. I'm talking about when you're brushing your teeth, when you're making your dinner, when you're sitting at your computer, when you're sleeping, when you're, getting into your car. There's all these different ways that we drive these patterns of movement and structural patterns deeper into our bodies by just the everyday places where we're unconscious. We're not aware of our bodies, and we're doing these habitual movement patterns that actually create these habitual energetic patterns as well. So you undo those and you get more present in every area of your life, in your daily life, through just body awareness and movement awareness and postural awareness. And as you do, it's like your entire life can change just from being present with your body and what it's doing in this 10 seconds. It gives you so much information. So I hope this was a contribution. Thank you so much for being here, for being you, for exploring these conversations with me, and hope to see you in a class sometime, somewhere soon, maybe in the world or maybe online. Thank you so much for you, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for joining me for the Entrepreneurial Biome podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. For more resources, check out my website at heathernichols.com and my social media channels as well. Have a beautiful day, and remember that your business thrives when you do.